All righty. Well, welcome to Quixotic Heights, where dreams take flight. And this show is really a deep dive into real stories, raw truths, and powerful insights from the voices that inspire change. I'm your host, Amy M. Lee. And today's Quixote is someone who embodies transformation and truth. And Iona Rudisill is not only an author, she's a podcast host, and she's an executive life and health coach. We'll find out more about what that entails. But through her work, she helps people reclaim their voice, stand in their power, and transform pain into purpose. And so, in this episode, we'll explore what it means to defend self justice, live in alignment with your truth, and lead a life rooted in healing and wholeness. So, with that, welcome, Iona, to Quixotic Heights. I'm so glad you're here.
I am so excited to be here with you, Amy. Yes.
This is a true joy for me because I got to meet you not too long ago, and I just found you to be an amazing light. So I'm excited to have our conversation today. Why don't you share a little bit about what your quixotic dream is or was?
Absolutely. My quixotic dream is to just be a transformer of burnout into power, to be able to have and hold spaces where men and women executives can walk into the understanding and truth of who they are in that light and really move forth in strength and soar courageously. That's me.
Can you share your journey, though, how you got to this point where that's what you want to do in life is help us to, yeah.
Absolutely. I'll do the shorter version since we only do have an hour. But the shorter version of how I got here was I experienced burnout and I recognized that I was experiencing burnout in my life for years, but in different levels.
Mm,
Because what I recognized was that burnout is not just in the workplace. Burnout is in life, burnout is in relationships, and burnout is just, it's not linear. What was given to me was that there are seven pillars of health that we have to walk in: the spiritual, which is our core. Then there's the mental and emotional and physical and relational and economical and intellectual as well.
mm-hmm,
And so uh, back in 1990, back in 1989, when I actually suffered from a traumatic brain injury due to a life-threatening car accident, I had to take uh, I was only 19 years old, but at that time, I was still in my faith. I was growing in my faith. I was new to my faith.
mm,
And I had to recognize, okay, I'm here to do something. Now, I didn't really know exactly what that was actually going to entail in the very beginning because I was only 19 years old. Yet, as the years grew and as life continued to happen, I recognized that what my purpose was in my 20s was to bring restoration and healing to those who experienced pain through the power of voice and the strength of awareness. And
mm,
so our voice is so strong and so powerful. And I always thought I was going to do this and accomplish this and execute this in that space of child sexual exploitation. And
mm,
then 2 years ago, when I actually had to, I experienced a very life health situation, a little health scare, where my I had a stent in my head because of the four surgeries that I had already encountered
mm,
because of the traumatic brain injury. And because of, how weather changes and there's sinuses, there were cysts that were forming in my skull, but they were enlarging in my skull, in the brokenness and the crushed in the skull. So they weren't going through how maybe another person who didn't have a skull fracture would go through. And during that time, because of the nerve pain, I couldn't open my eyes. Sometimes I couldn't speak. And so, in that stillness and that quietness with God, I heard it was like, you know what? I'm about to take a shift and I'm going to shift you into that health and wellness space. So, from 1989, from experiencing that experience to all these years later, decades later, to get to the point where it's really always been about health and wellness. And then recognizing that burnout is something that is not negative, but it can be positive because it awakens and it opens up an avenue for so many opportunities for us to move forward. And so through all of those experiences, that's where it comes from. I am a transformer of burnout into power because we can live in our greatness and in our wholeness, and we can soar courageously.
Wow. There's so much going in my head as you're talking. I was like, okay, don't forget to ask that question. Don't forget to ask that question. But um, have you always been in conversation with God, or did you feel like that relationship was also transformative?
Interestingly enough, I grew up in a very strong faith household around with with my father and my grandparents, and I remember situations when I was little where my grandfather would share with me of how God was speaking to me
Mm,
without really knowing and understanding what that actually meant. So I would say the transformation happened when I got to the point and I accepted it. And I
mm,
was like, okay, there is someone greater than me. There is something greater than me. There is the king of this universe. There is the creator of this world that is more powerful than I am, who sees more than I can see and hears more than I can hear. And so um, that actually happened for me in my late teens. And then it continues to develop over the years. And
mm,
so now I'm at this place where I see myself as a contemplative, where I allow myself to listen and see God in everything, God in creation, God in situations that are happening, because there is always a plan that is set for the purpose that has been designed for us.
mm. You truly are a miracle, Iona. Um, do you feel like there was any defining moment that kind of spurred you into this path that you're going on with burnout into power and transformative, coaching?
hmm That's a great question. And yes, when we recognize and we know, like I said, I recognized what my purpose was back in my early 20s. And I always thought it was going to be aligned with child sexual exploitation. That was my passion, that was my joy. And that's what I was always doing. Yet when I had that situation that happened in 2023 and I was out of work for 2 months, when I returned to work, there was a difference. And
Mm,
even though I still loved it, I
hmm.
kept feeling the pull that there was more for me to do and I had to get away from this space. And not that was anything wrong with the space. It was just I needed to get away. So my purpose, I battled with it. I struggled and I fought it because I'm like, no, I want to stay in this space that's familiar.
Mm,
And I kept hearing God speak to me. Um, some people call it intuition. I call it Holy Spirit was speaking to me and saying, you need to shift. And so when you are not aligned with the purpose, the execution of your purpose, I believe that things and situations are going to happen to move you into that space where you actually become realigned. And
yeah.
so as I was in this space, things just began to happen. And what I love to do and work in that field became laborious for me.
Mm,
It became challenging for me and it became unhealthy. And when as soon as I said yes to make
mhm,
that transition,
mhm,
that is when everything shifted. And that's when I got the definition of, well, what is burnout? We hear so many different definitions, and it came on the scene back in the late 60s, yet burnout really existed all the way through the beginning of time because that exhaustion and that tiredness and that struggle, when we define it, it's really being misaligned with our purpose, which results in that imbalance to our multidimensional health.
Mhm.
And so when I got aligned with my purpose, there was a peace that came over me. There were no flutterings that were happening anymore. The head pain that I usually was experiencing, I wasn't experiencing like that anymore.
Mhm.
I was in a state of rest and I was in a state of joy. And
Mhm.
so that was that transformative piece that got me to the understanding of we're going to not change. Well, I'm not changing the definition of burnout. All I'm doing is redefining it and
Mhm.
clarifying it to make it um, more purposeful in the space that I was in. And I know that I'm not the only one that was in this space, and there were others in this space as well. And it simplifies it.
Mhm. It's interesting that you said that you're redefining burnout, because one of my questions for you was, do you see burnout as something that's static, that is the same thing over and over from decade to decade, right? Or is it something that evolves where how we define burnout today is going to be so different from how we define it, 30 years from now? Um, and you had talked
Mm,
about
yeah.
the pillars, the seven pillars.
Mhm.
Um, can you break it down for us in terms of what those seven were and how do you define each one of them?
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, when we're thinking about our our health is not just linear either. It's not just physical. And the reason why I say spiritual is always, it starts with our core, is because I do believe that we are spiritual beings. Like I said, I do believe that we are the creative existence of God's workmanship and his handiwork, which allows us to be defenders of self justice and stand in that understanding of what our creative existence was and how to execute it. And so when we start with spiritual, we are recognizing that there is an entity, there is God, there is a greater force, there is a greater power that actually is over us, over our being. We weren't created just by an atom. We just weren't created just because, but we were also created and defined by purpose. There is a scripture in the Bible that in Ephesians that says that God knew us even before the foundations of the world. So therefore, before God created the world, before he spoke existence into the world and she nourished it, with her goodness and with her love, God knew us, knew exactly who Iona was going to be, knew exactly who Amy was going to be, and exactly knew that in this time, in this space, we were going to be having this conversation. So that's the core and the crust. And so when we accept that with our spiritual health, then we allow ourselves the space that we're always going to keep growing. And then there's that emotional health. And sometimes we don't take stock in our feelings. We don't take stock in our thoughts. We try to hide away from, okay, if I'm angry, I have to present in a posture that shows the world that I'm not angry. Well, who said that? It's okay for you to not be angry, for you to be angry. It's how
Mhm.
you actually move in those feelings of being anger. But we should be feeling the greatness of feeling sadness and anger and grief and sorrow and joy and love and delight. We should embrace all of them. And then there's emotional. Mental. Then there's mental. And our mental health is what are our thoughts? Making sure that our thoughts align with the posture that we're moving in. Like I said, I believe we were created in the image and the likeness of God. And so our thoughts are that there is something bigger, that God is bigger than us, and that when I believe that I can do, there's a scripture that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So when I believe I can do it, when I believe that I am number one, when I believe that I'm stronger, when I believe that I can succeed, then I can, even in the midst of chaos and destruction around me.
Yeah.
And we talk about relational. Relational health is so important because our relationships whether they are intimate with a spouse or they're intimate with your children or they're, intimate with our friends or they're with our work in our career spaces or just casual, how we actually interact with someone who we've never met before. It is how we show up. If we are able to show up in a space, then it does not become so agitating. You know, we can feel that feeling in that relationship. We can feel that disagreement in that relationship. However, we will not allow ourselves to allow that disruption in that relationship if it means something to me, if it's
Mm-hmm.
of value to us. So that's important of taking stock in what is our relational health? What is our physical health? We can't forget about that. What we put in our bodies is
Mm-hmm.
important. What we eat and how we eat. The natural fruits and vegetables and grains that you have in your space where you're from is going to be different than where I am in Maryland. And so if I'm eating honey with me who has allergies, if I'm eating honey from Mexico, and rather than eating honey from Maryland, it's going to be a difference in my body because of where I live. And also, as we ingest the great food, we can digest it. It goes so much better within us. Yet we're bio individuals. And so, what works for me, what I can eat, might not be the same thing as what you can eat, which is not the same thing with what my son can eat. However, we go on this journey on what's going to feed our body, which is going to make us feel good. So we're not eating something that is so heavy that makes us so tired all the time, but we're eating something that makes us feel good and pleasurable and allows us to have more renewed energy to move throughout the space that we need. And one of the things that I hear a lot is sometimes we're not paying stock to our economical health. Because in a society that we're in right now and things that are happening, we still do have to be concerned about what actually we are doing with the capital income that is coming into us and how we're actually seeding it out so that it can grow, so that our income can grow and spread and do what it needs to do so that, yeah, we have bills that we got to pay, but we also
Mm-hmm.
have life that we're supposed to be living. And that
Absolutely.
life is to live through us. And then there's also intellectual health because what we actually are going to be listening to, allow ourselves to read, allow ourselves to look at, that's also going to be taking stock in our mental health and our emotional health. So all of these pillars of health, they're not linear by themselves, but they also intersect with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a necessity. And so there were times in my life that I might have been strong spiritually and strong physically, but not as strong emotionally, not taking time to really honor how I was feeling. And now I recognize that's important. And so on my journey, as I'm now a life and health coach, that's what I share with the partners that I actually partner with. I don't call them clients, I call them partners because I'm a part of a sacred journey that
Mm-hmm.
they are on. And we're doing this together. So I'm like a guide to help awaken and illuminate how you are supposed to be living in your life so that
Yeah.
you're walking in the greatest multidimensional health that you have that is balanced.
So when you meet with your partners, and do you kind of break it down to what burnout they're experiencing, um, and then you address how to go about that? Or do you feel like you kind of do the holistic part of it, where you kind of treat the whole thing?
It is holistic, yet I
Mhm.
start with listening because sometimes people show up and they might think that this is the path that they should be going. But as I'm listening to what they're saying and what they're not saying. And then asking key questions so that they can identify what are the spaces that they need to work on the most in their health and wellness journey. Yet we're going to hit the holistic approach, but we're going to spend a little bit more time on the spaces that they feel they need to spend more time in.
Yeah. which it kind of goes back to what you said about us being um,
Bio individual.
yeah,
Hmm.
which I love that because we truly are unique and different. And like you said, with your example of, how I eat honey in Maryland versus in Mexico or whatever, your body's gonna react differently.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm gonna pivot a little bit because one of the things that I think I read about you is you have and I'm probably gonna pronounce it wrong, but is it the Shinnecock Indian heritage?
You have it right.
Okay. Hallelujah.
You
So
got
there's some
it.
principles with that you embrace.
I
Can you
do.
talk a little bit about that? I think it's very interesting.
I do. I do. So, growing up, uh, that's the Shinnecock Indian nation. That heritage comes from my maternal side, my mother's father's side, actually. And
Mhm.
so, um, I've been to the reservation, grew up talking to, cousins and great aunts and great uncles and listening to stories about how we honor land, how we honor the sacredness of God's creation, which is earth, and how we are to live in the earth, and how we are to respect the earth, and how God wants us to be respected. And so, when they were talking about, diversity, equity, and inclusion, mine was very broad because it's when God let's say it this way. When we say that God created us all equal in God's image and God's likeness, then we are all equal, regardless of race, ethnicity, where we were born, where we live, what circumstances we actually experienced. We were. And we can garnish life and behold life in creation. And so that's something that my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, taught me that you can hear the voice of God in creation. And so as a 16-year-old, I would go to the beach because I grew up in a place where the beaches were right near me and accessible. And I would listen to the ocean and I would hear the ocean. And with the Shinnecock Indians, we are people of the shore. So
Mm,
we love the water. We were whalers. We actually we fed from the land, which is also from the sea. So we're getting fish. We love to eat fish. So I grew up loving to eat fish. Now I have a shellfish allergy, so I can't eat shellfish, but I love eating other fishes.
mhm.
And it's something that is honoring because I feel like I'm doing it within the land. And so one of the things that I think that we had talked about when we first met is a word that I use a lot from our language is Algonquin language. And that's a lot. It's very similar to different Indian tribes in the Northeast. And one of the Algonquin language terms is called Mamoe. And
Mhm.
Mamoe Nene means we move together, which
Mhm.
means we were placed on this earth not to be singular or isolated, but we are to move together. And when one person soars, I soar. So when you excel, Amy, I excel. When I excel, you excel. We do it together and we honor that and we cherish that. And when we do that, there's no ceiling. There are no boundaries that are around us. And so that is something that I hold dear to, um, which all comes from the nurturance and the provision that creation provides, that God did.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Mama Weenie Nene, is that right?
Mamoe Nene.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm not gonna try that again. But I love that. We move together. And I agree because I feel like, we are all definitely part of a whole. We uplift each other, but we also can take each other down. And it's how we raise our children, it's how we interact with one another, it's how we, go out and protest or not protest. It's like everything is so connected. And it's a good
Mhm.
reminder, that we are one. So thank you for that. That's very beautiful.
Right.
Um, I
Thank
also want to
you.
put it again because you did talk about the the children's, the child sexual exploitation work that you did. How did you get into that? And what did you learn from it? Because it continues obviously today where that's prevalent in our society. You know, if someone is going through that, what can they do to get themselves help?
Absolutely. Being a survivor of sexual abuse and sexual trauma, even as an adult, it has been the one thing that I've always saw, which aligned with the purpose that I clearly understood and was defined to me when I was in my early 20s, was giving people a voice.
Mm.
Um, my first sexual abuse experience was as a child. And it was as a child when I was in my toddler stages. And from one side of the family was supportive, the other side of the family was blaming. And um, sexual abuse, or if it was going to be um, disability. And I just kept feeling drawn to working with child sexual abuse, of hearing the stories, of making sure that children's voices were being heard so that they were being seen. And so they were able to be recognized. And so their stories could be validated and they wouldn't be pushed under the rug and be hidden. And so that's how I got into that space. And like I said, I was able to do many different things in that space and, fight for laws that we didn't have in the state of Maryland, but now we do have, um, like safe harbor law, laws that laws that help uh, the power and voice of those who've been sexually abused in different ways or sexually trafficked. So it was I love that. And those who don't know about safe harbor laws, most of the states have all adopted some type of safe harbor law, which basically says that child prostitution does not exist. There is no such thing. There is no child that can actually consent to someone purchasing them for their own sexual pleasure. It doesn't exist. It never did. And we've been able to validate that in legislation. Um, there are also laws about reporting and who is a mandated reporter so that when you see something, you say something. You just don't allow things to just go underneath the carpet. And I've been able to develop teams in children advocacy centers and strengthen teams and support teams. And I was I'm blessed and I was honored to be in that space from being a survivor who has been thriving in that space um, as someone who's experienced it and someone who's seen others experience it. And there are resources, there are hotlines that can be called. And I know from earlier conversations, you're familiar with children's advocacy centers. So you know the strength of them, you know the support of them, and how they do help. And they just don't stop when a child is 18 years old. They're going up to 23. Some children advocacy centers are working with youth, young adults who are 25 years old, because there has been so much research now that has said that the brain is not even fully developed until the age of 25. Some research has said 28. In COVID, we saw that they were saying maybe not even until 30, because that prefrontal cortex that is
Mhm.
allowing decision making to really come alive is not fully developed. And when trauma is a part of that, it slows down that process of development even further.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And healing is ongoing, right? And it's not,
Healing never stops.
yeah, it's ongoing. It never stops. And if we are, when we're able to have those resources, I mean, I think we should just be able to keep on going beyond the 20, 8, 30-year-old lifespan.
Absolutely.
And if there's child advocacy centers that can help with that, um, but also the youth and onto adult and even into our elderly senior stages, that would be phenomenal. But
Yeah.
speaking of phenomenal, I think you know where I'm going to
Making
go
these
with
great
this.
transitions.
It's not always smooth, but um, you were in a book, a part of an
Mhm.
anthology. You want
Yes.
to share with the audience about this book?
Well, in the network that we are both a part of, women Women with Vision International, where we both were a part of two anthologies so that we are best-selling co-authors. And so my book that I was in is The Phenomenal Women Who Boss Up, where we actually talk about our stories, about how we stepped into that space of being entrepreneurial. What happened to us? How did we get to be in that space of entrepreneurs?
Mhm.
And the blocks that and challenges that tried to prevent us from moving in that space, but how we continued to be bold and take those steps. So every chapter, every woman's voice in that book speaks of courage, speaks of resilience, speaks of strength, speaks of boldness, speaks of bravery. So I am so blessed and thoughtful to be in that group that came in through Tam Luke. So because she is the um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? She is it's coming right there, when you
The
have that
vision
word,
behind the
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 vision maker
yeah,
of that
yeah.
whole plan, where I think I was like part of book number 12 or 13, and you were in a book as well. And so they're just steadily going and moving. And it could have been the 16th book. I'm not sure which number book it was, but she's been doing it for such a long time. And so um, I love that space because it allowed me to step into a space to meet other strong, courageous, resilient, empowering women like yourself.
Thank you for sharing that. How do you think that book has changed you from the Iona before Phenomenal Women Who Boss Up versus after that?
That is such a great question, Amy. It's just, it's allowed me to walk in the understanding and knowledge of who I was created to be. It before the book,
Mhm.
um, I didn't, I spoke, but I wanted my voice to be quiet. I wasn't trying to get my voice projected out there. Um, Before this, I would not have been doing this face podcast. I was like, okay, if you want to do an audio podcast, that's great because that's how my podcast started. It started audio because I was like, let's just listen to my voice. We don't have to see my face and my expressions and everything. Yet, in stepping into that space of understanding that, all of my life experiences were purposeful. They are purposeful. And each piece always continues to allow me to grow when I acknowledge it. So it's not for me to discard it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like I said, I experienced sexual trauma even as an adult. And that was during a time when I thought that my voice was going to be taken away from me because the person who inflicted the pain was someone that I was close to and I knew. Yet it wasn't that I had to be quiet and be disquiet. That was time to project and to share and to know, you know what? I'm not going to allow any situation to disquiet me because I was placed on this earth to be empowering and to be impactful and to be transformative. And so that was the place and the stance that I needed to move in. And after that book came out and we were publicizing it and I did a book launch and I'm speaking about um, me being a survivor and thriver of a traumatic brain injury, which I didn't talk about that much before either. So
Mhm.
all of these experiences are coming out, and they led me on that path to come to the awareness and the awakening, to be illuminated into the understanding
Mhm.
that when I say that there's more out there, there's also more for me. And for me to embrace that and to know that and to acknowledge that and to receive it and accept it. And so it allowed me to take some bold steps and some new steps. And that allowed me to launch Iona Rudisill LLC,
Mhm.
where it's not just a podcast that I was doing, but now it became a business where now I was going to be a coach.
Mhm.
And knowing that I was impacting lives um, in my workspaces, that let's open the door and just open my hands wide and say, God, you can do and move limitless through me in whatever capacity that you want to move through me in. And even though sometimes I'm afraid to step out and do some new things, I'm still going to do it because I
Yeah.
know that I'm not alone. And so even going into the becoming a scholarship recipient, the only U.S. scholarship recipient for the 2024-2025 school year of the Institute of Integrative Nutrition Health Coaching Program, which is the number one world's best, largest health coaching program.
Mm.
And so that was such an honor and a privilege to be selected. And everything that I've been learning has been reaffirming what I learned in the very beginning from my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, and from my Shinnecock Indian heritage.
Mhm.
So it's been so great and so wonderful. And it allows me to move into this space with boldness. So,
That is, that is so inspiring and so amazing. I can't wait to see what you do next because that already in itself is just phenomenal. And coaching and life coaching, I mean, it's so broad, it's so much to tackle. Finding a niche, I would
hmm
imagine there's a process for you. Like how did you go from this big thing to, okay, I'm going to focus on burnout health and help my clients or my partners that way? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I it really all was just that transformative piece of
Mhm.
recognizing that I was misaligned with my purpose. Understanding my purpose was to bring healing and restoration to those who are experiencing pain and trauma through the power of voice and the strength of awareness. Understanding that and recognizing that it was too closed in the child sexual exploitation space for me in that season and time, but that I needed to go in the health and wellness, and that it was okay for me to speak about my challenges, to speak about my struggles, because in speaking about my challenges and struggles, it's going to help bring that healing and that restoration for someone else. And if I just touch one person's life, if I can help to transform another person so that they can see things differently, then I'm walking in the pathway that the Lord has for me to walk in. And I'm moving in that pathway with such strength, and I can identify it. And so when I said yes to the switch to health and wellness, that's when the transformation of burnout was coming in. Because until I said yes, I wasn't even thinking about my past experiences of burnout. I wasn't thinking about what I was experiencing presently at that time was burnout. And when I recognized, oh, you're misaligned with your purpose. And so while these things are happening, you're putting more stress upon yourself unintentionally because you are misaligned with your purpose, that is causing an imbalance with your health, which is causing your physical health to not be well, which is causing your emotional health not to be well, which is impacting your relational health.
Mhm.
And you're really stifling your spiritual health. So
Yeah.
after that, yes. And then I was able to just sit in quietness again and be still and hear this. The niche just actually developed in itself, to be honest.
Amazing how much opens up when we just say yes.
Yes.
When we open up and say, okay, I'll peek it through that door, God. I'll climb through that window, see what you got. And everything just kind of opens up and it's much more clearer. Which
Hmm.
is very beautiful. And you have a podcast. It's Iona Speaks. And actually it evolved. So maybe you
It
can,
evolved.
yeah, maybe
Yes.
there's a lot of evolution in your life. And
There's
I think,
been there's been some
yeah,
evolution that's happening. And
yeah.
I think that's wonderful because, we completely evolve from when we first met each other.
Mhm.
You have evolved. There's different evolutions that are happening with you. And, I think that that's what happens in life. When we allow ourselves to just keep evolving, we keep growing. And so the podcast first started for the first 5 years was Iona Speaks about defending self-justice, which you were a guest on.
Mhm.
And now it has shifted because we now, as we recognize that being a defender of self justice is taking executive ownership over our creative existence and walking through God's righteousness so that we can soar as God's eagle, then now we can be in that space, understanding that we are image bearers and we can soar we can soar courageously, going to new heights
Yeah.
and knowing that there is no ceiling to the heights that we can get to.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. When you talk about storytelling and being brave enough to share our stories and things like that, I truly believe that it's not just you're not just helping others heal, you're not just helping them transform and seek clarity, because I think you're also experiencing that yourself. You're on
I
your own
am.
journey.
I
And
am.
it goes back to you
Yes.
said about wholeness and collectiveness and how we affect one another. Um, Kind of a full circle thing, but I think it's just so beautiful, Iona. Thank you again for sharing that. Oh, I know. I think you might have froze a little bit. Are you, but you have a beautiful smile. Iona, are you there?
I'm
Okay.
frozen on your side.
Yeah, that actually it was the second time that you were frozen on my side.
Really? Oh
I
my
know.
goodness. Stop
But
it. See, that's why, because this is such a powerful conversation.
I know, but we're
They're
unstoppable.
trying to stop it. But no, 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 we're going to keep going.
Gonna keep going, and in the little freezing moments, we'll just cut off and continue, and that's okay. That's life. I want to talk a little bit more about your coaching. Can you, without going too much into, confidentiality stuff, but can you
Sure.
share maybe one or two stories where you were able to meet up with a partner and help that person go through their journey?
Yeah. So, one partner that I have is a entrepreneur and a strong, bold woman, and yet had to take some steps and needed to take a step in life that was challenging personally and professionally because that person was evolving and there were shifts and changes that were happening. And through learning how to sit still and listen and recognize that the emotional health is just as important as our spiritual health, which is just as important as our physical health, and that we have to be balanced in all of them together. Uh, Learning how to become one with themselves because they were one with God, but they had to acknowledge that, you know what? God created me. So I have the authenticity. I'm supposed to walk in God's authentic power. And sometimes it's hard to walk in God's authentic power because of life situations that are happening. And because those life situations might be weighing an individual down and pushing them down. This partner was feeling the weight of it. And so we went through breathing exercises and we did spiritual meditation and we talked about different ways of how to eat. And we talked about different ways of how to look at things and um, to to acknowledge the feelings, but not to allow the feelings to take control. And from that, that person took a brave step and moved into a
Mm.
venture that God had already ordained for them, a venture that God is prepared a way for them. And that person is now in embracing a new spectrum in the dimension of life that God has given to them. So,
Fantastic. Well, you know how they say men are from Mars and women are from Venus? Do you find that coaching men and coaching women are quite different? And do you have to adjust your style a little bit?
yes, and yes, because once again, we're bio individuals. And that term I'm using, I'm coining from IIN, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, because I think it fits so well into everything that we do. So I'm not going to pigeonhole or place in a box how I even speak to one woman as opposed to another woman, which means I'm not going to speak to one man the same as opposed to another man, which means I can't speak to a man the same way I speak to a woman, but yet I still speak to them in the same way. So that might have been confusing in what I just said. It's more so that I'm speaking to them in the space of life, that what I give to them is life giving. Yet how I present the materials is going to be different to how they're going to perceive them. What is the best space for them to perceive them and receive them? And so that's what I have to be cognizant of. I have
Mhm.
to listen and I have to see what actually, not what, but how they present so I can present the way that's going to be the best way for them to receive.
Mhm.
Did that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So you're a podcast host, you're a speaker, you're an author, you're a life coach, you're all these wonderful things. How can someone best work with you? Let's say I'm a corporate entity,
Mhm.
I hire you as a speaker. What would be your main topics of discussion or your key presentation themes?
Yeah. So that's great. I have my key topics of discussions are around, health and wellness, but also health and wellness, spiritual direction and growth.
Hmm.
And when I talk about health and wellness, I'm talking about um, the power of breath and how God breathes through us and how we can use that so that we can transform burnout into power,
Hmm.
so that we can lead in our breathing.
Oh,
I actually did a presentation for the Maryland Coalition of Health, and it was breathing to lead
hmm.
and how the power of breath helps us in our capacity to lead
Mm.
through situations of burnout and in situations of burnout. Because sometimes we can be in that situation of burnout and not realize we're there. And sometimes we're in there and don't know how to get there, get out of it. So
Yeah.
when we recognize that a simple piece of how we breathe and that we can do that throughout our day in very
Hmm.
moments of day, and it might not take, doesn't have to take 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. We can do it in 30 seconds. Sometimes we can do it in 15 seconds. You know, it's uh, and embracing that false narrative um, not embracing our true self by dispelling hmm, the false narrative that has been placed upon us of who we were.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's something that I can speak on, as well as spiritual guidance and direction on embracing our calling, beyond comfort. Because sometimes, like I said, I was in that familiar space. I was comfortable, but I had to embrace the difference of my calling, the shifting of, not that my calling was shifting, but how I was presented. My
Mhm.
calling was now shifting. And
Right. Go
that's
ahead.
what was necessary to do. And just cultivating that presence of God in our lives. So those are some of the workshops and presentations that I have done and can do.
Yeah. I think I experience burnout every day. Um, the hard part is recognizing that you're in burnout mode. And even
Mhm.
if you are in burnout mode, it is doing something about it, right? You recognize it, do
Yes.
you do it? You do it, yeah. Do you do something about it?
Do you do something about it?
Yeah. And what is it going to take for me to pick up that phone and call Iona and say, I need to schedule, a coaching session with you? Or um, what can we do other than the breathing and that kind of thing? But how do we
Yeah.
like take that first step? Because I'm a stubborn girl. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I hate to say this, but I'm always gonna think I'm gonna dig my heels in even deeper and power through this. I'm gonna get through it, and then I'll see myself on the other side of burnout. And that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Knowing that you're not in this journey by yourself.
Hmm.
You don't have to do this by yourself. Goes back to my Moe Nene. We move together. There are things that I can partner with you on and help you through that burnout. And then there are things that I can't. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to refer you and connect you with another person who's going to help you as well. Because how we do this is we do this as a team because we move together. So I'm the life health coach on the journey. Somebody else might be the nutritionist on the journey. Someone else might be the physical therapist on the journey. Another person might be the functional medical doctor on the journey. Another person might be the therapist, the mental health therapist on the journey. And you've
Yeah.
got the whole team around you. So, what I would say is if you're in that space where you're feeling tired, you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling like you're alone, you're feeling like you just have to keep pushing through, you don't have to. You can do this, and you don't have to do it by yourself. You can do this with someone. And I can be someone who can help you, or maybe not. But
Mm.
at least we can have a discovery call and see if we're the right fit for one another. That's the first step. Let's have a discovery call and let's talk. So let's have a conversation so that I can listen to where you're at and see
Hmm.
whether or not this is a partnership that we do together, because
Yeah.
it has to be something that we choose to do together.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you said earlier on about the seven pillars that most people don't talk about is the financial health.
Hmm.
To me, that's new. We know about the
Hmm.
mental, intellectual, spiritual,
Yeah.
right, physical, but we don't talk enough, I think, about the financial piece because growing up, that's not something we are taught about, like how to manage our money, how to balance our checkbook, how to not, go in debt with credit cards, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Why do you think you have that financial piece in one of your pillars?
It's in that piece because it's necessary to be there. I
Hmm.
have gone through all of my spaces. Economical health, I'm going to say, it's might not be the strongest area for me, yet it's a necessity. It's an area that has to be strong. So there's things that I know to do and things that I have to do. And I know that everyone is operating on a different, um, in a different economic place. Um, there might be some people who are on public assistance, and they might be stronger in their economic health than somebody who is making six figures.
Mhm.
because they recognize how much is coming in and they recognize how much is going out and they're recognizing how it's supposed to go and where it's supposed to go. I've had financial advisors. I've had to do a budget. Right now I'm in joy-based spending. So I'm cataloging. That's one of the tools that I use. So I share that with my partners too, is I'm cataloging everything that I spend. And then I highlight which are the things that don't bring me joy.
Mhm.
Don't bring me joy. And some people might say, you know what? Why don't you highlight the things that do bring you joy? Well, I've gotten to the place where I'm spending so strategically that a lot of the things that I am spending on are bringing me joy. But those things that are not bringing me joy that I have to still spend
Mhm.
on, like paying off a bill, now that might say, okay, someone's saying, well, that brings you joy because you could be debt free. Yeah, but I wish I didn't have that debt.
Yeah.
So therefore, so therefore, it's not, but then there could be a debt like for my business, paying off my credit card bill for my business. That does bring me joy because
Mhm.
that's something that brings me life. But
Yeah.
another bill that I'm paying off does not bring me life. So that's one that becomes highlighted.
Yeah.
And that's what I share with my partners. So it's like, you know what? As you said it, I'm on a journey with you. I'm journeying. I'm never going to say that I know it all, but I know the things that I do know. And so hopefully the things that I do know can help get another person over the hump. And
Yeah.
I know how liberating walking in economic health, which is having an understanding that it is important and it is a necessity that helps us move forward. It doesn't mean that we're debt free. That's not economic health. That's a piece of economic health, but more
Mhm.
so it's a mindset. It's a transformative mindset is what am I doing with what's coming in? And when say what's coming in is less than what's going out, what is the wisdom I use? What are the strategies I use to still make sure that I am walking in a posture where I'm not feeling defeated
Mhm.
and pushed down, but I'm feeling liberated and still able to move in freedom, in a piece of
Yeah.
freedom. And this piece of freedom grows and expands into a larger space of freedom.
Everything you are saying resonates with me. And even when you talk about doing the exercise of cataloging, like nobody likes to do that, but it's you got to put in the work, right? You got to put in the work to see the change that is within you, that is
Mm.
possible within you. Um, and I think that goes not just with the economics and the financial piece, you have to catalog your relationships, for
Yes.
example, right?
Yeah.
Is that person that is coming into your life giving you value, the input and the output, is that all
Right,
really
right.
what makes you happy? If not,
Is it
we
bringing
gotta
joy?
shift.
Is it rewarding?
Is it
Or
rewarding?
is it depleting?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we wrap this up, because I'm looking at my clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, where did the time go, Iona?
It was a great conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Um, but I want to also cover some of the things that you had talked about before about the four W's. You talked about the four W's of wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah, was wholeness, willpower, wisdom. What was the other one? Worthiness.
Worthiness.
Yeah,
Worthiness.
yeah.
Yes.
Can you kind of break those down for us?
Yeah, real quick. Those are the things that actually were my core values.
Mm,
Those are the things that helped me get through the insufferable physical pain that I was experiencing from the traumatic brain injury. Those were um, the four core values that give me strength to walk into a new space of health and wellness. Because when we understand that we were created in God's image and likeness, we are whole, we are complete, we are
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
Now, we are perfect because God created us. We're not perfect in and of ourselves, but we're perfect because of who our creator is. And that brings us wholeness. And then we're able to walk in a space of willpower where, you know what, no matter when the rubber meets the road, when things just come up, when life situations we experience, are we going to allow ourselves to shift and keep moving forward? Is it going to be an intentional grind, not a grind that is going to be laborious, but or depleting, but it's going to allow us to move forth with bravery in the
Mhm.
midst of fear, in the midst of doubt, with courage and with intentionality. And then we're going to walk in wisdom because we're having a divine wisdom. There's my dog barking. We're walking in divine wisdom because there are things that we're going to cultivate, that we're going to need to cultivate, that we're going to need to move forth in.
Mhm.
And we're going to have to make these shifting. And that's where these strategies come in. You know, how do we navigate the systems of the world? How do we navigate healthcare systems or financial systems or spiritual systems? We're going to be able to do that in wisdom, and we understand that we're able to do that because we are worthy and we are deserving to be in every space that God allows for us to be in. We are not to be silent. As an African American, Native American woman, I know that I am empowered to be in spaces to sit at the table. And sometimes I am the table.
Mm. I'm gonna just sit with that for a minute. Sometimes I am the table.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Whew. You're also an entrepreneur. This is my last question. You're also an entrepreneur. I don't even know where to begin with that, Iona, because it's so scary to go on
Yes.
your own.
Wow.
No regular paycheck. It's like feast or famine. It's like, how do you deal with taxes? How do you're the employee, but you're also the boss. Kind of share a little insight into what that was all about.
Yes. So I know when you do the editing, you'll probably be able to take out the background noise because my dog is now eating. So
I love it.
but anyway, so to answer your question, um, you are absolutely right, Amy. Stepping into that entrepreneurial space is scary, because you are now everything. You are the CEO, you are running a team. You need to make sure if you have a team, and if you don't have a team, you might that you're actually in, you're paying, you might have a team that who is supporting you because they're volunteers. I say right now, my team is me and my husband. He's my CEO, and I'm sorry, he's my CFO because
Mm,
he helps to make sure that our finances are moving the way that we need to do, and so that our profit and loss is going to be different this year than it is going to be next year,
hmm
because he has that understanding of that. And I also have editors because I do a newsletter that read my writing, that go over my writing so that when I put it out, it's understandable and it's clarion. And, I have someone who helps with my media on how I'm supposed to be presenting myself.
hmm
So all of these are a part of that. And, there's been some bartering of services as well, exchanging of services, because sometimes we're growing. We're in the new stages. I became a LLC in October of 2024. So I'm not even a full year yet as an LLC, even though I have been doing some things. And so because I started in 2024, yep, as taxes came around, I did my first annual report this year. And I had to get that out because you want to make sure that you are, as you said, your taxes flows, things are flowing right because now you're going to be you're going to be walking in integrity,
Yeah.
because as we're walking in our authentic self, we need to make sure that our business is also authentic and our business is also integral. Uh,
hmm
I don't think that's the word, is moving in integrity.
Yeah.
is doing what it's supposed to do and being positioned the way it's supposed to be positioned.
Right.
So we do things, and my husband also, he is a co-producer with me on the podcast. So
Mm,
he's the one. He's got that media eye as well. He's got that media because that's what he went to school for. So
yeah.
I'm blessed to be able to have these skills around me that can help me be established so that I can move forward in
Yeah.
integrity. That's
Yeah.
what I was.
Yeah.
That's the way I was looking for. But it's something that we have to be conscious of. And as I'm starting this and I'm building this, um, I am still now about to be venturing in and working with that position. It's okay to have a business and work 9 to 5, or work part-time or work full-time, or 8 to 4, or 7 to 3, whatever the timing might be.
Mhm.
Um, and what I recognized is that it's okay for me to do that as long as I'm doing it in the health and wellness space, because it
Good.
has to be in the health and wellness space. So
Yeah.
I'm about to start uh, a position where I'm going to be, maybe when this probably airs, I would have already started the position
Hmm.
of being a high school counselor for an independent school.
Oh,
So
wow.
because that aligns with health and wellness.
Yeah. Well, that is your brand. And you're right. I mean, you got to stick to your brand.
So I'm sticking to my brand. I'm
Yeah.
sticking to because
I
I
love
am
it.
my brand.
Yes,
I
you are.
am my brand.
Hmm.
So
Love it. Love it. When you were talking about your husband, I was thinking about my husband. I was like, what does my husband do? I think he's the chief technical officer because whenever I have an issue with my computer, honey,
uh-huh.
but he's also my HR guy. Like he's like,
Yeah.
have you taken a break? Are you preserving your time, especially on the weekends or the holidays? Are you
Mm.
working the 8 hours or 12 hours or what are you doing? So thank goodness for, our loved ones around us and our community who help us to build our business, our brand, but also to help us from our wellness perspective, right? So
Yes. And that's such a blessing
it
when
is.
we can say that we have supportive husbands who are walking right beside us
Mhm.
and they are pushing us along and encouraging us. And we're doing this life together.
Yeah.
So even though that's your business and this is my business, it really is our business because I couldn't do this. I couldn't have the freedom and the liberty to do this if I didn't have my husband who was so supportive and helping to get me from point A to point B.
Hmm. Yeah. Shout out to our hubbies.
Shout out to the hubbies.
And we will end with that on a good note with our hubbies. But Iona, it's been such an amazing hour with you, but just not just the hour, but ever since we have met through Tam. Thank you,
Yes.
Tam, for connecting us and continuing for her to do what she does. She's a powerhouse as well.
Yes, she
But
is.
yeah, today's episode,
Trailblazer. That was the word
that
I
was
was
me,
looking
yes.
for. Trailblazer.
Asian Women
She has
Trailblazer.
been, yes. Oh my gosh. And she is a trailblazer for
Hmm.
all of these women who boss up books. And that's your book. Look at that.
I know. See, we're all connected.
All connected. All connected.
Absolutely. So before we actually close, is there anything else that you want to talk about that we didn't talk about, or do you have any promos? What's next? Where can people find you?
Um, I just want to say thank you for this platform. I want to thank you for doing this podcast where we're just stepping boldly, where the dream is coming alive. The dream is not staying stagnant,
Mhm.
but the dream is alive. And I want to thank you for giving us this space and this platform for us to share that. And I'm just so excited to um, listen to all your other guests as well and how they're soaring courageously, and just stepping into that space. And I'm so thankful that we were able to be connected and have this time. And for anyone who is looking to transform their burnout into power, who feels that what they've experienced, the fire that they've gone through, that they want to be strengthened and refined through that. And they are looking for a partner to help walk them through these spaces. And they're accepting that they don't have to do this on alone, that they recognize that they don't have to be isolated, because knowing that we can move together, Mamoe Meme, that's where we can soar our best and be our best selves. You can locate me at IonaRudisill.com. I'm on different platforms. If if you're interested in becoming, wanting a discovery call, I will give that link to Amy, of where you can just connect with me, and we just have a discovery call where I just listen to you, and we figure out what the next steps are going to be the best for you. And what is another next step for me? I'm in the process of, as you know, of writing my singular book. I'm in the process of going through it and adding pieces
Mm,
to it, so it can get to that place of editing and getting to that place of publishing.
yes, yes. Another scary venture.
Another scary venture, but well, not but another scary venture and a rewarding venture.
Yes, yes. I'm one of those not but and people too. So thank you for that
Yes.
reminder. I love it. Well, Iona, thank you so much for sharing yourself with our guests. I mean, our listeners. And I just want to say good luck to you. I know
Thank
we'll
you so
continue to be
much.
in touch, and I know we'll continue to walk this path together. Um, Listeners, if you were inspired today and you want to continue to self-empower and self-heal and when I say self, I don't mean just on your own. Really, it takes a village to do this together. I do encourage you to reach out to Iona and do that discovery call. But if you love today's episode, please do consider subscribing and giving us a rating and sharing this with others. Until then, keep doing what you're doing, because you're not in this alone. So with that, thank you so much, Iona.
Thank you, Amy. My pleasure.